in the oven. What happened to Dr. Dekker? Oh, when? How? Sorry, you probably don't know, do you? Ouch. I didn't really know him that well. I'm trying to remember what I was doing on Valentine's Day now. We had a display in the gallery based on Love Conquers All, so I had to work. Mainly it was a collection of giant hearts sat on things, but I ran into another patient, Bryce. I'd never really spoken with him before, but he's quite an art critic. I couldn't get rid of him until I finished work at 11. There's actually another guy who takes over on the night shift. I'm not sure if he kept talking to Bryce though. Providence is open 24 hours. There's not much to tell. I knew he was a patient here. I'd seen him in the waiting room a couple of times. He likes art and talking and looking down here instead of up here. When you see a painting, it stands still. When I see one, it's moving, like a mini film, like little vines. But when there's a person in the painting, they watch me, normally disapprovingly. Because they don't think I know how to appreciate art, because I'm too young. Yes, of course. Otherwise I wouldn't be working in an art gallery. I love art. I love paintings. Like I said, they move for me. When I want them to, normally. When I want to really get inside what's going on. But some paintings, I can't stop. I've been working on portraits, at home, outside work. But my paintings aren't so good. Nowhere near Providence standard. I painted a man, Dorian. You know, after Dorian Gray. I wanted to try and capture someone aging, so I divided the face into thirds and painted a boy, his father, and his grandfather in each third. It was hideous. And it started talking to me. That I'm ugly, that I have no talent, nothing will become of me. Is that true, Doctor? I hear it so many times with that wretched painting. It's in my head. But thank you. He was shy, and then less so. When I told him about my problem, he told me to set fire to it. Yeah, he could have been more specific. I tried to set fire to Providence. At that time, I thought the only way to fix my problem was to set fire to the entire art gallery. Several paintings didn't make it. Luckily, my boss didn't press charges. The police did arrest me though. My boss, Petra, she's just lovely like that. Providence has gone through some tough times and I've only been there a year. She invested her life savings and it's still not making any money. Such a sweet lady. You'd do anything for her. Dr. Dekker told me to burn it. It was nothing to do with Petra. No, why are you saying that? I don't even know if Petra has insurance. I already ripped up the painting. It screamed as I cut it. And now whenever I close my eyes, I can see it, hear it. I need the tablets, Doctor. I need them. The temazepam, the sleeping tablets. The ones you gave me last time. Dr. Dekker gave them to me. They helped. I know it's in my head. I know paintings can't talk. What's wrong with me, doctor? Why do I do this? Thank you, doctor. I'll think about that. And the prescription, please?
I'm Lacey Hendricks. So you don't know about me then? Where to start? My next door neighbour in Jobson Hill, where I live, she was murdered. 80, and they diversion burgled her. But she was wise to it and started calling the police. They slit her throat with a bread knife. So I started a neighbourhood watch. It was me and Agnes. Everyone else thought we were overreacting. If they want their throats cut, that's up to them, living in their bubbles. But Agnes, poor Agnes, she went missing and still is. And that's what people think, but it's not the truth. It killed them. It looks normal enough. A smartly dressed door-to-door saleswoman. I know because I heard my other neighbours shout at her, "No Jehovah's!" They think anyone knocking is a Jehovah. But she said she was selling double glazing. I don't know, I didn't answer the door. Best not to nowadays. But I watched her go to Agnes's. Poor Agnes. She let her right into her house. I could only see the silhouette. It turned from a person into a, well, it looked like, I guess you'd call it a Medusa. Snakes for her face. And Agnes just fell to the floor. A few minutes later, the woman left, smiling like the cat that got the cream. That was the end of Agnes. I saw it with my own eyes. What more proof do I need? You're starting to sound like Dr. Dekker. He didn't believe me either. I didn't have much luck with him, like I said. He didn't believe me. He thought I was having a hallucination caused by the stress of my neighbour being so brutally murdered. Where is Agnes, though? I haven't found her, have they? Have they? What? That can't be possible. Is that true? Why don't I know about it then? When was this then? Is she alive? Her useless husband is. Don't know much about him, other than the fact that he looks at me like I'm 6 foot under every time we meet. He doesn't seem too bothered she's gone missing either. He did at first, when the police were crawling around. But now they've gone, that stopped. If I hadn't seen that thing eat her, I'd... No, he's a weaselly little man who spends far too much time in his garden. It's probably like the National Trust back there. The constant digging and building, pruning and sawing. What a thing to say! Why would you say that? I kept watching the front door after that saleswoman had left and nothing. She didn't leave, and you can't get out the back since the council sold the garage block. Ron's a gardener, not a killer. Unless... Agnes said Ron was laying the foundations for a new greenhouse. You don't think... I need to call the police. I need to call them now. But they won't listen to me. I tried to tell them about the monster, but they didn't believe me. They won't believe me about this, I promise you. Please, could you call them, Doctor? Thank you, Doctor. Now give me a pen and I'll write down the details for you. Don't you want to know why Dr. Dekker called me the leech lady? He said that I leech thoughts from people, suck them right out of their heads. And I can put thoughts in there too. I'm not that clever though, am I, Doctor? I mean, it's not as if I was having an affair with Ron and Agnes was in the way and needed to disappear. So I made this story up. I mean, what do you think I do for a living anyway? Doctor, you're so good. We're going to get on just fine. I was at Henley Church. They had a service that ran right up till midnight. For us less fortunates without a love in their life. Well, now. Do you have someone, Doctor? Do you have a love in your life? Keep 'em safe. You never know who's going to come knocking on your door.
So, should I get a solicitor or shall we try and talk it out with him? I think we should get a solicitor. I know the perfect firm. I'll do it all, don't worry about it. And that's why we've got insurance for these kinds of things anyway. But the cheek of it. Hey you, thanks for helping me with this grief thing. I'm not sure I have it though. I don't really know where to start. I feel a bit numb. Maybe we should just talk about him. It hadn't even been a year. He was a quiet, solitary man. A good listener, as I suppose you'd need to be. His confidence did grow as time wore on, but that's what you'd expect after you've fitted in. I mainly miss our chats. He used to work late with me and tell me things about the patients, things that I probably shouldn't have heard, but did. What do you think of the patients? Nah, perhaps you shouldn't say. You can ask me, go on, I'll tell you what I think. We'd work late together on all sorts of things. He was preoccupied with finding patterns in patients, trying to find some kind of order. Mainly he was searching for a common experience the patients might have had. That's what led them to his office. He'd study everything, even the referral letters. Yes, letters, parking tickets, holiday destinations. You know, I find those referral letters, he was sure there was a pattern in them. Mariana is a special girl. You know, there's something about her that just makes you want to follow her. Maybe that's what a trendsetter looks like. I think Bryce has a lot of misdirected anger. I don't think I like him that much. You know, sometimes when things overrun, he's outside waiting for you and he stares at me as if he's undressing me with his eyes. You know, he's not the first person that's done that, but still, you know, it feels worse coming from him. Claire seems to be shaken by something. You know, I offer her drinks every time she comes in, but she always refuses them. It's as if she just wants to come in, get her session over with, and then run off to do something else. It's a bit rude, isn't it? Elin seems like a lovely person, I'm not really sure why she's here. Oh, I just want to cuddle Nathan all up. He's such a mess. He's always in the same clothes. He barely talks to me though. It's the same hello every time. He reminds me of Tom. Tom was a quiet mess, like Nathan. Youngish, in his early 20s. He taught piano, but he did have a strange hobby. Tom liked to base jump. That's basically falling from a huge building or mountain and pulling your parachute before you hit the ground. He started to think he could fly. Dr. Dekker tried to talk him out of it, but Tom had to prove his point. So one day, Tom decided to base jump without a parachute. Can you guess what happened? He did die. He was hit by a rock from further up the mountain. He never got to fly. Nathan thinks he knows what his problem is too, but if he's not careful, he'll get hit by that rock. I wish I'd said goodbye. I wish I'd said goodbye to Dr. Dekker. It was so sudden. Here, then gone. He resigned anyway, but that's not the same, is it? Dr. Dekker resigned shortly before his murder. It's sad, but doctors come and go and only poor Jaya remains. I've got his resignation letter somewhere. I do all the hiring and firing around here. Well, Professor Alderby and the Trust technically do that. Professor Alderby is a trustee. Did I not mention that? On Valentine's Day, Dr. Dekker had a session with Claire Castleford at 11 and that nurse Elin at 3. Everyone else cancelled. You should see this place Christmas Eve. I was at home though, so I don't actually know who came in. Dr. Dekker did phone and ask me for Nathan's number, which is a bit strange. She was cuddling him like he was 6. He's 25. Most of the patients are suspects according to the police. Almost all the patients are referred, and some of them are privates, but Dr. Dekker didn't introduce any of them. So you watched the tapes, gold star for you. It smashed.
Help her finish her unfinished business. People who are dying always have things they wish they could do before they go. We leave a lot of loose ends in our lives. We're very messy that way. Hilda wants to see her daughter. She's in Australia, so I'm going to have to use my talent. I can change my skin. What I look like. I can turn into a patient's loved one. I just hold their hand and ask them to imagine that the person they want to see is sitting right here next to them, and I become them. It's how I help them move on. That's how I comfort them. I only shift at work to help my patients. I don't have any interest in using it as a party trick or to deceive anyone. Of course, it was Terry that accused me of stealing. One of the other nurses, she's actually trying to make out that I'm some kind of HSK. Healthcare serial killer. Like those nurses that kill loads of their patients. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it. Anyway, because a few of my patients have died on me, and some of those patients have given me gifts, Terry thinks it means that I've been killing them off. His name is Max. He's really sweet, but I don't see a future between us. He's not really my type. I've known Max a couple of years, but this is the first time we've been on a date. I don't think he's boyfriend material. Dr. Dekker seemed fine on Valentine's Day. He seemed to be in a good mood. It didn't seem like anything was bothering him. I can sense it, you know? It's like when you're outside and there's a sudden change in the light or the air feels different and you know it's going to rain. It's like that. I always know when one of my patients is fading, even before the doctors know. Their energy changes. It sounds silly when I put it into words. I sound like my mum.
David hunts,
I can change my skin.
then skins.
Dr. Dekker dated his patients.
I had a hot date
We went out for drinks.
I took photos of Jessica.
Dr. Dekker did
on
phone
Valentine's Day.
and ask me for Nathan's number.
There was a girl there.
Am I wrong to keep the locket?
I'm allowed to talk to her, aren't I?
He was preoccupied with finding
Photographs.
patterns.
Rocking chair.
I haven't been back to the beach since,
I had a bit of a shaky loop incident.
where I find something
I set fire
beautiful in the sea.
to Hannah's clothes in the garden. I dug the grave.
I wish I'd said goodbye.
Dr. Dekker cursed me.
It didn't weigh enough to have a body in it.
Oh, Doctor, you surprised me. Reminds me of Officer Yates. Did I ever mention I had a special friend in the police force? Nah, it's not something you drop politely into a conversation. He's been doing some digging and he's found a couple things. There's a crime scene report that goes into all the gory details and another report that's about a patient you're seeing today, Claire. I'll put them both on the desk for you. And thanks for the grief counselling, by the way. It's really been helping, you know, I'm so glad you're here.
It makes for interesting reading, doesn't it? I can tell you're dying to ask me about it. Fire away. That's what it says. I can see you're confused. The police say that David is dead, fatally wounded when I stabbed him. The coroner says that David is dead. Everyone says that David is dead. There was even a funeral. But I know he's alive. He's buried at Henley Church. You can go see for yourself. There's even a headstone. One of your other patients was a pallbearer. I never forget her face. You should ask him. David wanted to have a talk about our relationship. Not something any married person wants to hear. He said he'd been with Iris for about a year and that he loved her. He said he didn't love me anymore. Which I know is a lie. You don't just fall out of love with somebody. I reacted badly. I grabbed the nearest weapon I could find, which happened to be the steak knife, and stabbed him with it. There was so much blood. I instantly regretted it. So I fixed him. It was about a week later. I brought David back to life. Not with voodoo, not with virginal sacrifice. I just willed it to happen, and it did. Dr. Dekker told me it was possible, but only if you're not buried. He says once you're in the ground, there's no coming back. But until then, you have a chance at resurrection. Yes, resurrection. But now that I've seen the results, I don't think there's anything holy about it. I think reanimation is more an accurate term. Like, I'm an evil necromancer raising things from the dead. I think his brain was already decaying,
during the week that he was dead. Important bits. So when I brought him back to life, I didn't heal him completely. Just gave him life in the state he was in. I mean, he's hunting and killing things and trying to roast them on fires he can only light with matches, but that's about it. He's your basic Neanderthal. So I have a problem. I'm being charged with murder because the police don't know he's still alive, and I can't get David to vouch for me for obvious reasons. I think it would raise quite a few more questions than answers, which is why I'm hoping that you'd be able to help me. Considering the circumstances, I'd be grateful if you could see your way to declaring me temporarily insane at the time of the murder, to lessen my sentence. Because I'm not a killer, but I can't prove otherwise. You don't still think I'm a killer, do you, Doctor? At worst, it's manslaughter. I didn't mean to kill him, I just stabbed him a bit. And although he was dead for a week, I brought him back to life. Does this mean you won't help me? Was I temporarily insane? I'm going to pretend that I didn't hear that. Let's have a few more sessions before you seal our fates. Or is it that you want something else? Like Dr. Dekker did? Dr. Dekker teased me mercilessly about my alleged ability. He didn't believe I'd reanimated David. Once he presented me with a dead mouse and commanded me to give it life again. I didn't, of course. It's not something I'd throw around lightly. He changed his mind about me eventually. And then he mentioned the girl. He told me he'd locked up a girl in the basement of his house, just for me, and he asked me to reanimate her. It was Iris. I said I couldn't reanimate something that wasn't dead, and he said that wouldn't be a problem. So I agreed. I just played along. I was hoping it wasn't real. I assumed it wasn't real. But he was offering me what I wanted, a temporary insanity diagnosis. It didn't happen. Dr. Dekker called me from his house to cancel. He was furious. He said that Iris had escaped and he blamed me for it. He said that I must have set her free after he told me about her. I knew it was all lies anyways. He was obviously titillating himself by reprimanding me. He knew I'd never want to speak to Iris again, so I couldn't prove it either way. Bryce was a pallbearer for David. He's also a gravedigger, I believe. Smuggling a body out of a funeral can be difficult, unless you pay the right people. Dr. Dekker asked if I could prove David wasn't dead, so I took him to the lake house. He saw that I was telling the truth. I can take you to see him too, if you like. Would you like to see David, Doctor? Very well. In our next session. I've been to the lake house regularly, keeping an eye on David. I saw the girl again, the one I told you about. She was playing outside. A paper spike is an odd thing to use as a weapon. I suppose if it went directly into the heart, it might work. Or through his eye, or perhaps through the ear into his brain. Or was it just a frenzied, bloody mess of a murder? Do you know, Doctor? You tell me. What could possibly explain that? I assure you, David is not a ghost. I've touched him. Since I brought him back, I felt that there was something different about him, something not quite right. I think it's his brain. But how ludicrous that you can bring someone back in the first place. It's like that book, Pet Cemetery. Funnily enough, he does smell of earth, but that's because he spends most of his time out hunting. If David doesn't exist, then that means that I really did kill him. He really is buried, and I really should be going to prison for a very long time. That just doesn't seem right to me. It's more probable that I reanimated him under Dr. Dekker's guidance. How astute, Doctor. Yes, I did say I hadn't seen Dr. Dekker outside of our sessions. That wasn't a lie. Our trip to the lake house was made during a session. I didn't speak to her this time. Something about her made me feel uneasy. I just watched her from the bedroom window. She'd caught a fish. She was holding it in her hands. I wasn't close enough to see, but for all intents and purposes, it looked as if the fish bit her. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I caught a fish alive.